today we're going to be showing you how you can create your very own Hugging Face space. Let's dive straight into it. What we're going to do for this video is we're going to walk through this blog that I created on how to create a Hugging Face space, a beginner's guide, just so you can see clearly the steps that are outlined, and if you want to refer back to this blog later, you can do. The link to it will be in the description and in the pinned comment. The first thing to mention is that if you experience any difficulties or you have any questions, or if you're just interested by the machine learning and AI community, then we have a community that you can join where you can ask us questions, you can join in on some really cool nerdy conversations. So head to our community sign up link, which will also be in the description and the pinned comment, or click this little link here and it will redirect you to our community where you can ask us questions and have some fun with the machine learning community. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create an account. Now I'm already logged in to my Hugging Face on this browser, but I'm going to navigate to Hugging Face on Safari. And so this is what you can expect to pop up. This is Hugging Face itself. We can see we have models, dataset, spaces, which is what we're going to be building in today's video. And we can see here there's a login or sign up. So when we click sign up, you're prompted to input your email address and create a password, and then you just follow the next steps. Very, very simple sign up steps. And the important thing to note is you'll be asked to verify your email, so make sure you do that before moving on to the next step. And then once you signed in, your Hugging Face will look similar to mine here, where you're logged in. And you can add an image, you can add information about yourself here, and it will look very similar to this. Cool. So we've created an account and we've confirmed our email address. That's steps 1 and 2 done. Now what we're going to do is we're going to head to Spaces. So Spaces is what we're wanting to build today. It basically means we can show live demos on Hugging Face and show it to the world. So we head back to Hugging Face and we're just going to click on Spaces here. So it's in the top here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, and what you can see is the Spaces section. We have Spaces of the Week. So these are different demos, different Hugging Face spaces that you can interact with and play around yourself. Spaces of the Week, I always enjoy coming here and seeing what is trending in the world of machine learning and AI, and always fun to just play around with. And if you're lucky, one of your spaces might make it onto Spaces of the Week. So back to the article, we head to Spaces, and then the next step is to create a new space. So we'll create a new space. So this is what comes up. It says create a new space, and it says spaces are Git repositories that host application code for machine learning demos. And you can build spaces with Python libraries like Streamlit, Gradio, or Docker images. For the purpose of this video, we're going to be doing Gradio. We're going to be using that package, that Python library, because it allows for some really cool demos and applications. So the first thing to know is we have our owner. So this should be the name of your username that you signed up to. So this will be your Hugging Face username. In my case, it's just my name. Then we're going to name our space. So what that means is when you head to a Hugging Face space, so I'll just go back to Hugging Face, we'll go to a space here, and we'll click on an example of a space. So let's do the top trending, which is this one. Your Hugging Face name will be this here. So it will be your name / your space. So you want your space name to be similar to what you will be doing. So for us, we're going to type Marco classification. And the reason for that is our demo today, we're going to be using a machine learning model to classify images. So Marco is the company that created the model that we're going to use, and classification is exactly what we're doing in this demo. We're performing classification. Short description, we're going to leave this blank for now, but we could say classification with Marco fashion embedding models. License, you don't need to specify anything for license, but if it is applicable to you, then change it. But for starting with Hugging Face spaces, you don't need to add anything there. Then we're going to select the space. So we're going to choose Gradio, and that's because Gradio allows us to do some really cool things on this demo. We're going to have a blank Gradio template just so we can build it up. But if you want to have a chatbot, text image, or leaderboard, then you can do. But I'd encourage using blank just because then you can see exactly what you're doing. It's a little bit nicer to start from scratch and build up. Space hardware, we are going to keep it as this, which is the free tier. Now, we can change this, but it will cost. And so if you are wanting to run something very computationally expensive, it might be that you want to take advantage of some of these better hardware options. But for us, because our demo is very simple, we can stick with the free version. So we stick with free, And we're going to make our space public. And the reason for that is because once we have built the space, we can then share it to the world and they can also try it out and test it themselves. So we'll click create space. Short description is not allowed to be empty. Interesting. I have previously done it empty, so that surprises me. But anyway, let's do classification using Marco's fashion embedding models. So feel free to add that yourself as well. Hopefully this will let us create the space, and it does. Amazing. Now let's just go back to the article. So we've created an account, confirmed the email, we've created a new space, and this section here is basically just me explaining configurations. So the next step that we're going to need is to install Git. Now this is if you haven't already installed Git. Hopefully if you're watching this you already have Git installed. If not, then please head to Git's official page, which is here. Again, I'll put this link in the description and the pinned comment, and download it for your specific operating system. And then all it says here is basically once you've installed it, you're going to open a terminal and you're going to type git -- version, and it will produce a version if it's working properly. Once you have Git installed, the next step is to clone the Hugging Face space. Okay, now this is what this text box here is saying. It's saying you can start by cloning this repo. So what you're going to want to do is when you see this screen, you're going to want to copy this here. Once you've cloned this, you're going to want to open a terminal. I'm going to move my current directory onto my desktop. So this now moves me from where I was before to my desktop, and this is where I want to clone my repository. So I just copy the git clone command and I press enter, and you'll notice that on my desktop I now have this folder which is named marker classification. So back to the article, the next step is to open this folder in VS Code. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So let's open VS Code, and now I'm going to open desktop. Go to my desktop and we have marker classification here, and I'm going to open this folder. So now when we look at VS Code, we can see that we have opened that folder, and now we can start adding files into here. Cool. So we've done that, we followed step number 7. Now step number 8 is to create an app.py file. And what we need to do is go back to our folder. We're just going to create an app.py file. And this is the code that is responsible for the app that we're posting onto Hugging Face, that we're putting onto Hugging Face. And so in this demo article, I basically just say, all you need to do is copy the code that we have here. Now I've put some comments in there to explain what each of the things are doing. If you're interested and want to know a bit more about the code behind this, then please join our community and send me a direct message, and I'd be more than happy to help out with that. But the first thing we're going to do is just copy this code like I said, and we're going to paste it into our app. Amazing. Now what you might notice is I've got squiggly lines under here. Clearly these aren't imported. We need to make sure we have all of the requirements that we need for not only us to build it locally, but also to host it on Hugging Face spaces as well. Now, step number 9 is add dependencies. Now, this is important for Hugging Face itself. What we need to do in order for Hugging Face spaces to know what packages to install, we need to create a requirements.txt file. And so we'll do that. We'll add a requirements.txt file, and for this specific app we're going to copy these requirements. So we need transformers, torch, request, pillow, open clip torch, and some others, and then we're going to save that. So we've copied them into requirements.txt, and all this means is Hugging Face spaces, when it goes to deploy your app, it knows what packages to install so we don't get any errors. Cool. So both of these are now saved. Now, obviously we still have the squiggly lines here, and that's because we need to create a virtual environment to run this locally. And that's what number 10 is here. It's testing your app. So we're first going to test this app works locally, so we know that it would work when we deploy it onto Hugging Face. So to test this, we're going to go to terminal, we're going to open up a new terminal, and we're going to create a virtual environment. All this code does here is it basically creates your virtual environment. It'll then install the packages that it's needed to install for the app to work, and then this final command here will run the app. So let's give that a go. Now, It's worth noting that this line here is for Mac only. If you're on a Windows, then please substitute it for this instead. But because I'm on a Mac, I can copy it and we'll press enter. I'm going to click yes. Now it's worth noting I probably should have removed the comment out of the command when I copied it over. So while that installs all of the packages that it needs to, you'll notice that some of these have no longer have squiggly lines because we've installed them into our virtual environment. So all of these have been installed, and now because we've done the Python 3 app.py, this is now going to start our app. So I'm going to zoom out slightly. We'll just keep an eye on the terminal. Amazing. So what this has done is it's gone, created the virtual environment, installed all the libraries that we need, and now it's saying that our app is running locally at this URL. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this URL, and it sends us to here. And this URL is our local deployment of our app. Back to the article. This is essentially what I've just shown you there is this entire step here. So again, ours is running locally, and this is what we see. Now to test out that this fashion item classifier is working, we're going to copy this URL, which is a URL of a jumper, and we're going to paste it into the classifier. This is what comes up. Now it's worth mentioning a little bit more about this Hugging Face space that we're doing here. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this URL, and as we can see it's an image of a jumper. And when we copy the URL into here, what we are using is on the back end, so in all the code that we've just seen, we are using Marco's fashion embedding models, and what they do is they can take this URL and they can classify what's in the image. So when we click submit, this should come up with a top, because if you notice in our code, we only have 3 different items that we're telling the embedding models to classify. So top, trousers, or hat. And obviously this jumper is probably closest to a top. Now, if I go back and I change this code, so I'm going to say I'm going to add a jumper in here. I'm going to click save. Now, we're going to have to rerun our app because we have to rebuild it. So we'll just Command Z or Control Z or just terminate it. And then we're going to run Python 3 app.py again. And I'll just zoom in a little bit so you can see that. So Python 3 app.py. We'll press enter. And this is going to rerun our local deployment of our Hugging Face space. And again, it's at this new URL. So we'll head to this new URL. We'll copy the same image. We'll click submit. And notice now how it classifies a jumper. So feel free to play around with this, add some more items into here, fashion items of course, you can add sunglasses, specific trousers. Obviously these are very generic fashion items, but you can be very specific. And the machine learning model that we use actually does a really good job of classifying very specific items as well. So I encourage you to play around with this, add some more fashion items into here, find different URLs that you can input and play around with. But that is the demo. Now we've done this locally, but how do we get this onto Hugging Face? That's the next step. The very final step, which is step 11, is uploading this to Hugging Face. So it's gonna, basically we're gonna have this that we see here on Hugging Face, and so we can play around with it, we can send it to people, and yeah, have a lot of fun with it. What we need to do first is create a .gitignore file. Now we'll do that and I'll explain what that does. So when you create a .gitignore, this basically tells Git what files it should ignore when pushing. And so when you create a virtual environment, you can see we have venv, which is our virtual environment, but we have all of these files that have been built when we created the virtual environment that we really don't want to push onto Hugging Face. You know, we don't want it to be pushed. So we can specify that we don't want venv here. And so that won't be committed. Equally, if you have other files that you want to keep locally, so on your own computer, but not online, then this is a way of basically saying, I don't want that to be pushed. And so we basically don't want to push our virtual environment. So the first step was to create the gitignore. Now the very final step is committing and pushing your code. So what we're going to do, we're going to open a new terminal and we're just going to say git status. Now what this will tell us is when you type in git status, it tells you what files are available to be committed. So we have our .gitignore, which obviously we want. We have our app.py, again that's the fundamental part of our app. And we have a requirements.txt, which will tell Hugging Face what libraries it needs to install so that the app runs. Cool. So now we have these files and we're ready to put them onto GitHub. The way that we do that is we say git add, enter, and you can do all these in the same time, but I quite like to do them separately. And then we do git commit -m, and this is going to be your commit message in here. So we'll just do initial commit. So git commit, and it's saying 3 files changed, insertions, and it's created modes for each of these files. And then we're going to say git push origin main and press enter. Now what you'll see here is we have written objects to Hugging Face space, which is our URL. We're going to open this, and this is what you'd expect to see. So note that this is what we had before, and now it's building. Our Hugging Face space is running, and so we can take the same URL here, we can paste it into here, we can click submit, and yes, we get 100% jumper. Now, like I said, please have a go at experimenting with different URLs, adding different texts, fashion items into here. And now what you can do with this is you can copy this, you can send it to your friends and they can have a go and play around with the Hugging Face space demo that you have built. Now, like I said, all the links that I've mentioned in this video will be in the description box. And if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to leave a comment on this video or send a message on our community. And if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe and comment, and we'll see you all in the next one.